to the Amber Alert, which was widely speculated upon the timeline in which it should have or could have been enacted, the Department of Justice regulations under the Amber Alert program state that sufficient descriptive information relative to the abductor and or vehicles used in the abduction be present. In the case of Hawaii, we did not have that information. We did perform the best management practice that was called upon. We issued a missing persons bulletin and in such allow all members of law enforcement to establish necessary levels of protocol in the context as if an Amber Alert would in fact have been called.
That was Pritchard Mayor Troy Ephraim nearly 3 weeks ago on the day that Hawaii Robinson's body was found.
The mayor clearly explaining why an Amber Alert was not issued for the missing 8-year-old girl. And as we told you earlier, the Justice Department does not want law enforcement agencies abusing the Amber Alert system because the DOJ believes that people may not pay attention to the alerts if there are a bunch of false alarms.
Which may explain why very few Amber Alerts have been issued in Alabama. According to the state, only 2 Amber Alerts have been issued so far this year. Last year, the same number, 2. In 2012, just 1.
And those numbers don't change much as we keep going back in time. 2 Amber Alerts issued in Alabama in 2011, in 2009, and in 2010. No Amber Alerts were issued in the state. In 2008, 1. In 2007, 2. 2006, 2. That adds up to a total of 12 Amber Alerts in the last 9 years.
We'll get back to those numbers in just a minute, but first, we want to introduce you to our guest, Pritchard's interim police chief and public safety director, Mike Rowland, has been kind enough to join us tonight.
We certainly appreciate you being here. Pritchard Mayor Troy Ephraim and Mobile Police Chief James Barber were scheduled to be here, but both canceled today. So we, again, thank you for coming out and talking to us about this. Now, I know that there's not a lot that you can say about the Hawaii Robinson case, but I have to start out this conversation because a lot of people want those answers. Do you have anything that you can tell us about the case at this hour?
Well, you know, you're exactly right. People want the answers. And, you know, through all the law enforcement partners, we mulled over that for quite a while and very intensely to try to determine what we could say and what we might not be able to say about the investigation. And of course, as a result of that, we decided that it was best that all that information come from one source. And we decided that since the case would ultimately be prosecuted by the district attorney, that the district attorney should make that determination and release any information that might affect the investigation itself. That all being said, what I want to do is I want to reiterate back to the community that we're still working on this every day. As a matter of fact, today I was out running down some leads on some things that came up, but we're still getting leads every day on that 1-800-CALL-FBI telephone number. We still encourage people to do that. We feel like we're moving along in this making progress on the investigation, but we just don't have the luxury to be able to talk about details.
Okay, we've been talking a lot about Amber Alerts, of course, and you know, after all this time that's passed now, do you think an Amber Alert would have helped in this case?
You know, no one really knows. The alert itself is an alert, and it does go out nationwide, and it allows citizens to look for certain things. But we know in this particular case that the alert that we put out on the NCIC National Crime Information System did go out nationwide, and it went to a number of other cities. I was just today saw an article from Jonesboro, Arkansas that was published the day that we first made the notice on this. So the NCIC system, the missing child alert system, does work. The Amber Alert system enhances that somewhat, but I think that what you said in the graphic a while ago, that there's this fear that putting out too many Amber Alerts may draw complacency. One of the things that we experienced after this case came out, there was a lot of people criticizing that an Amber Alert had not been given out, but one thing we also were recalling was just a week or so before that, we had received an Amber Alert from Fairfield, Alabama. And that alert, of course, came into South Alabama, and we did retrieve that child in the city of Pritchard. The one thing that the community complained about was that their cell phones were going off and the TVs were buzzing and everything else in the middle of the night. So there's an upside, there's a downside. We don't want complacency to set in with the community if too many of these alerts did go out.
Do you think that it's a good idea or a bad idea that the state is, requiring you to meet these recommendations? There are other states that have decided to loosen that criteria, to leave the opinion up to the law enforcement officers.
Yeah, that's true, and that can be a double-edged sword. They leave it up to the officers or the departments themselves to make that decision. Let's face it, if you're in the trenches and you're actually doing the work, you kind of know how serious it is and how bad you need to get that information out. But there needs to be a clearinghouse, and that's what the state of Alabama does, is clears all of these alerts through the Missing Children Center. And so I think it has to be that clearinghouse process to some degree, but I'm not saying that they maybe shouldn't loosen up the criteria a little bit.
To put more of the judgment in your hands, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's important that local law enforcement be able to make that final determination, I think. And in this particular case, we did notify the Missing Children Center, and we did talk with representatives there and impress upon them what we had. But we just didn't meet the criteria that the state demands.
It's true. Now, we have a question from a viewer who posted something on our Facebook page. Angie wants to know, why does a vehicle have to be involved? If a person is missing, the person's missing.
Well, the Amber Alert was set up basically for abducted children, whether it's through a known abductor or an unknown abductor. And part of that criteria is the presumption that if this abductor has a vehicle, that they'll be on the roadway and be more likely to be seen. So if we have a description of that vehicle and possibly the tag number, and I've seen this myself on the interstate, being traveling when an Amber Alert did come out, and they'd be looking for specific vehicles with specific information. The more information we have, the better, and that's part of what this requirement is.
Well, the time flies
yeah, it
so
really does.
quickly. I do want to ask this question. Do you think that getting back to the Hawaii Robinson case, an Amber Alert would have helped?
There again, I just can't say whether it would or whether it would not. What I would say about it is every tool we can utilize is a tool we need to utilize. Had we had the opportunity to put the Amber Alert out, we would have put that out. I know that there is some discussion now amongst the legislatures to possibly amend that law, but if not amend it, to maybe possibly draw up a new law which will make it easier for law enforcement statewide to put out that information without some of that criteria, maybe without the description of the abductor, maybe without the vehicle information, and that may very well make it a lot easier for law enforcement to respond in a more sufficient way.
All right, Mike Rowland, Public Safety Director and Police Chief, Interim Police Chief of the City of Pritchard. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Jason.